"Checking in?" He said it the way people say things they already know the answer to. Not a question. A verdict. Nora stood at the front desk of the Aldridge Grand with one carry-on bag and a coat that needed dry cleaning. She'd driven 4 hours from Memphis. She hadn't stopped to change. The coat was fine when she left the house. It didn't feel fine now, standing under the chandelier in the lobby of this hotel while a man named. She read his name tag. Stewart looked at her the way people look at something that doesn't belong. "Yes," she said. "Checking in. Nora Calloway." Stewart typed. Slowly. The kind of slowly that isn't about the keyboard. Behind her, the lobby of the Aldridge Grand did what it always did. It hummed. Marble floors. A fireplace that cost more than most people's cars. A bar to the left with bottles lit from underneath like they were sacred. It was the kind of place where the silence itself was expensive. Nora had stayed in rooms like this before. She knew what thread count felt like. She knew what it meant when the bath products didn't have a price sticker. She set her bag down. She waited. Stewart looked up. "I'm not finding anything under that name. Try the corporate rate. Calloway. Calloway." He typed again. His jaw did something small. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to ask you to step aside. There are guests waiting behind you." There were no guests waiting behind her. Nora turned and looked. The lobby was almost empty. A couple near the elevators. A man reading a newspaper by the fire. Nobody in line. She turned back. "I'll wait right here." Something shifted in Stewart's face. He picked up the phone on the desk, kept his eyes on her, and said something too low for her to catch. When he put it down, he folded his hands on the counter. "Our guest relations manager will be right with you. Why don't you have a seat over there while you wait?" He gestured at a bench near the side wall. The kind of bench that was close to the exit. Nora looked at the bench. She looked at Stewart. She didn't move. She had left Memphis at 5 in the morning. This was not unusual. Nora Calloway had been leaving before dawn her entire adult life, first as a paralegal working double shifts to put herself through night school, then as a junior associate at a firm in Nashville that didn't pay her what it paid the men sitting next to her doing the same work, then as a name on a letterhead, then as a partner, then as a name that other lawyers said quietly to each other in hallways when they wanted to explain why they'd lost. She was 44 years old. She had argued cases in 11 states. She had won 9 of them. She did not need anyone to explain to her what a courtroom looked like, what silence from a jury meant, or what it felt like to stand in a room where nobody expected you to win. She also knew exactly what was happening at this front desk. The Aldridge Grand was not a random hotel. It was owned, in full, by the Calloway Meridian Group, a hospitality holding company that her late husband Raymond had built from a single property in Knoxville over 30 years, and that Nora had run quietly and completely since his death 4 years ago. She did not advertise this. She preferred to arrive without announcement. She had learned more about her own properties this way than she ever could have from a quarterly report. She was here because of a complaint. 3 weeks ago, a woman named Donna Reeves had sent a letter to the Calloway Meridian Group's corporate address. The letter described in careful detail an experience at the Aldridge Grand. Donna was 51 years old, a retired school principal, and had been traveling alone. She had been told at check-in that her reservation could not be located. She had been asked to wait on the bench by the side wall. She had waited for 40 minutes while the guest relations manager, a man named Conrad Hale, made calls, checked screens, spoke to colleagues in lowered voices, and eventually told her that the room she had booked was no longer available and offered her a property 2 miles down the road at a discounted rate. Donna's reservation had not been lost. It had been moved. The room had been given to another guest who arrived after her. The other guest was white. Donna Reeves had gone back to her car and cried for 20 minutes. Then she had driven to the other property, which was fine, if ordinary. Then she had come home and written a letter in her best handwriting on cream-colored paper and mailed it to corporate with a stamp. Nora had read that letter 4 times. Then she had gotten in her car. "Miss Calloway?" The man coming toward her across the lobby was in his mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with the kind of smile that gets practiced in mirrors. His suit fit well. His shoes were shined. His name tag read Conrad Hale, Guest Relations. "I'm Conrad Hale. I apologize for any confusion at the desk. How can I help you today?" "You can check me in," Nora said. Conrad's smile stayed where it was. "Of course. I just wanted to personally assist. Can I ask, do you have a confirmation number?" I do. Nora opened her phone. She showed him the screen. Conrad looked at it. The smile became something slightly different. I see. Let me just verify a few things on our end. He turned to Stuart, who was watching from behind the desk. Something passed between them, not words, just a look. Ma'am, Conrad said, turning back, I want to be upfront with you. We're running at very high occupancy this week. There may have been an issue with the booking system. There wasn't, Nora said. Conrad tilted his head. I'm sorry? There wasn't an issue with the booking system. The system is working correctly. The reservation is in there. Stuart found it approximately 4 minutes ago and chose not to confirm it. She paused. I've been watching this desk for those 4 minutes. I've seen where he looked on the screen, and I've seen where he stopped looking. Conrad's smile disappeared. Nora had seen that happen before too. The smile was the armor. When the armor came off, you got to see what was underneath. What was underneath Conrad Hale was not impressive. Ma'am, I understand you may be frustrated. I'm not frustrated, Nora said. I'm observing. There's a difference. Conrad straightened. I'm going to need to ask you to lower your voice. Nora had not raised her voice. She had not raised her voice once. But she understood what this was. It was the request that turned the scene around. If she reacted, if she let anything into her tone that wasn't perfectly calm, then she became the problem. She'd watched it happen to other people. She was not going to let it happen to her. I'm speaking at a normal volume, she said evenly. I'm going to ask you one more time to step aside and wait while we sort this out. Otherwise, I'm going to have to involve security. The lobby was quiet. The couple by the elevators had turned to look. The man with the newspaper had set it down. Nora looked at Conrad Hale for a long moment. Then she opened her bag. She did not take out a wallet. She did not take out an ID. She took out a single sheet of paper, folded once, and held it out. Conrad took it the way you take something when you don't know what it is. He unfolded it. He read it. His face changed. It was the kind of document that doesn't require explanation. It had the name of the holding company at the top. It had the name of the property in the middle. It had Nora's name and title at the bottom, above a signature. It was, in short, the kind of paper that turned the room upside down without making a sound. Conrad looked up. You're he started. The owner, Nora said. Yes. Stuart had leaned forward behind the desk. He could see Conrad's face, but not the paper. He could see enough. I've been here for approximately 12 minutes, Nora said. In that time, I have been told my reservation doesn't exist. I've been asked to wait on the bench by the exit. I've had a smile pointed at me that I was supposed to find reassuring, and I've been threatened with security for speaking at a normal volume. She paused. None of this is new to you. You've done it before, 3 weeks ago, to a woman named Donna Reeves, a retired school principal who booked a room 6 weeks in advance and had it given to someone else. Conrad said nothing. The difference, Nora said, is that Donna wrote me a letter, and I came to see for myself. The next hour moved the way certain hours do, slowly at first and then all at once. Nora did not make a scene. She never made scene. What she did was walk calmly to the small office behind the front desk that was used for guest relations, and she sat down, and she asked for the reservation records for the past 90 days. She asked for staffing logs. She asked for any complaints or incident reports that had been filed, and separately, any that had been filed and then removed. A young woman named Priya, who worked the back office system and had been listening to everything through the open door, pulled the records with quiet efficiency and did not look at Conrad when she handed them over. Conrad stood in the doorway. I want to call our regional director before any of this. You may call whoever you like, Nora said. I am the regional director's boss. He called anyway. She could hear him in the hallway, his voice getting lower and more careful the longer the call went on. By the end of it, he was barely speaking above a whisper. The records were not subtle. In the past 90 days, there had been 11 instances of reservations being lost or relocated at check-in. Of those 11, 9 involved guests whose names suggested, and whose complaint descriptions confirmed, that they were black. In 6 of those 9 cases, the room had been given to a white guest who arrived after them. The displaced guests had been offered a property down the road and a discount that represented, in some cases, less than $30 off a $300 room. None of the 11 guests had been called to explain. None of the 9 had been offered an apology. 3 of them, including Donna Reeves, had written to corporate. One had left a review online that had been flagged by Conrad's account and suppressed. Nora read this last part twice. She set the papers down. She looked out the office window at the lobby, which was still humming, still expensive, still doing what it always did. The fireplace was going. The bottles behind the bar were still lit from underneath. "How long have you worked here?" she asked. Conrad was back in the doorway. 7 years, he said. His voice was different now. The practice tone was gone. What was left was something smaller. 7 years, Nora said. She nodded slowly. "And in 7 years, did you ever once think about what it cost? Not the rooms, not the discount vouchers." She looked at him. The woman who drove home and couldn't explain to her family why she cried in a parking lot. Conrad opened his mouth. "Don't answer," Nora said. "It wasn't a real question." She stood up. She picked up the file. "You're terminated," she said. "Effective today. HR will be in touch with the specifics. You'll be escorted out by end of business." She looked at Stuart through the window. He had been watching. "Him too," she said. Priya walked her to the room herself. It was on the 7th floor, facing east, with a view of the river that turned silver in the afternoon. Priya had said almost nothing the entire walk. In the elevator, she looked at her shoes. When she opened the door and handed over the key, she finally spoke. "I filed a complaint," she said, "internally, 6 weeks ago, about what was happening at the desk." Nora looked at her. "Nothing happened," Priya said. "I didn't know who to send it to. I sent it to Conrad's supervisor, but Conrad's supervisor—" She stopped. "What's your last name?" Nora asked. "Mehta. How long have you been here?" 2 years. Nora looked at her for a moment. "The complaint you filed, do you have a copy?" "Yes. Send it to this address." Nora wrote on the notepad by the door. She tore the sheet off and held it out. "That goes directly to me." Priya took it. She looked at it, then looked up. "Is the hotel?" She stopped again. "The hotel isn't closing," Nora said. "The hotel is going to be fine. So are you." Priya nodded. She didn't cry, but it was close. After she left, Nora set her bag on the luggage rack and sat on the edge of the bed. The room was beautiful. It always was, in her properties. She'd made sure of that. Soft light, good linen, the kind of quiet you couldn't get in a cheaper place. She thought about Donna Reeves driving home, the parking lot, the 20 minutes. She thought about 11 guests, and 9 reservations and 6 rooms given away, and 3 letters that had been written by hand, on real paper, by people who wanted someone to know what had happened to them. She thought about Conrad's face when the smile went away. Then she picked up the phone on the nightstand and called her general counsel. What happened after that took longer than one afternoon, but moved in one direction. Conrad Hale did not contest his termination. His supervisor, a regional manager named Tate, who had received Priya's complaint and done nothing, was placed on administrative review pending a full audit of his decisions over the past year. By the end of the week, the audit had found 3 similar patterns at 2 other properties in the group, and 2 more regional managers were being asked to explain themselves in writing. All 11 displaced guests were contacted personally, not by an automated system, not by a form letter, by phone, by Nora's office, with an apology that named what had happened and an offer, not a discount, not a voucher, of a full complimentary stay and a handwritten note from Nora herself. Donna Reeves received her call on a Tuesday afternoon. She was in her garden when the phone rang, pulling up end-of-season plants. She listened to the woman on the phone explain who she was, and what had been found, and what was being done about it. When the call ended, Donna stood in her garden for a while without moving. Then she went inside and called her sister. "You're not going to believe this," she said. The story did not stay quiet. Stories like this rarely do. Not because anyone made a speech, not because anyone held a press conference, but because people talk. Priya told someone, that someone told someone else. A journalist who covered hospitality industry news heard a version of it and made some calls. By the time the story ran, small, in a trade publication, not front page anywhere, the facts were already in motion. Conrad Hale did not find another position in hospitality management. His name, quietly, was on a list that got circulated among HR departments the way these lists do, without ever being officially confirmed to exist. The Aldridge Grand underwent a staff review and a retraining program that Nora designed herself. She brought in an outside firm she trusted. She also promoted Priya Mehta to a front office supervisory role, on the basis of a complaint filed 6 weeks before anyone else had noticed anything was wrong. Priya framed her copy of that notepad sheet. Some people, when they tell this story, want to talk about Conrad, about what drove someone to behave that way, to make those calls, to move those reservations, to look at those guests and decide casually that they deserved less than what they'd been promised. Those are fair questions. They don't have simple answers, and anyone who tells you they do is selling something. But Nora thought, more often, about a different part of the story. She thought about the bench by the side wall, close to the exit, the bench that was the answer to the question, where do you put someone you've decided doesn't belong? Not outside, not yet, just to the side, just slightly out of frame, just where the other guests don't have to see anything uncomfortable while they walk to the elevator. She had stood in front of that bench and not moved, and the reason she'd been able to do that, the reason she hadn't flinched, hadn't backed down, hadn't folded her coat over her arm and gone quietly to wait where she was told, was not because of the piece of paper in her bag. It was because she had spent 44 years learning exactly what it looked like when someone decided she didn't belong somewhere. She had learned it early, and she had learned it in full. And she had also learned, slowly, at cost, over years, that the correct response to that look was not anger, and it was not retreat. The correct response was stillness. Stay where you are. Let them come to you. Let them show you everything they are. And then, only then, open your bag. If this story moved something in you, if you've ever been made to feel like you didn't belong somewhere you had every right to be, drop something in the comments. A word, a memory, a name. This community sees you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it. They'll know why. We'll be back with another story. Until then, stay still, stay standing.